Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Monday, November the 16th, 2020. On this edition of the Politicrat, the notion of leadership. Leadership? A look at what we've been seeing in several countries, and a real question. What is leadership? And do you think that these examples that I will be talking about are an example of leadership? That, and maybe an observation or two, in addition, coming up next. Welcome back. It's been a quite ridiculous last 72 hours. I mean, between all the garbage and democracy smashing that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have been doing here in the United States, and the debacle of Dominic Cummings in the United Kingdom as some shadow puppet madman who is controlling an inept prime minister at number 10 Downing Street in London, his name being Boris Johnson, who now is self-isolating for 14 days at minimum because he had the bright idea of standing next to an MP, member of parliament, who he was less than 2 meters from, 6 feet from, without wearing any mask, and having had been on death's door himself just 7 months ago. Between all of that and more people in the White House coming down with this virus, and more people in Downing Street and in Parliament in the UK coming down with this virus, what on earth is leadership? Because I could really just put a stop to this episode right now and say, this ain't it. This ain't it. What is leadership? Because these are people in power. And you've got here in California, and I talked about this yesterday's episode. Here in California, you have a governor named Gavin Newsom, Democratic governor, who, in the midst of all of this, said that he had gone to a party. Do you know how many people that we have in the state of California here, the Golden State? Do you know how many people we have in this state who have died from coronavirus? Do you want to guess? We have over 18,200 people who have died in this state from coronavirus. In England, in the UK, I believe the number of people who have died is something around the order of 52,000, somewhere in that realm, between 50 and 52,000 people. We have, in California here, over 18,200 people dead from this deadly, contagious virus. And the governor of our state has gone to a party telling us all to physically distance, Avoid being in groups, large crowds. Wear your mask. And Gavin Newsom, who clearly wants to run for the United States presidency at some point in the next 10 to 20 years, certainly, is out there going to a party at the French Laundry. I'll explain that in a minute, but why is it that so many people in power, and it's not just in the US and it's not just in the UK, we've seen this in Brazil with Bolsonaro, another strongman dictator type. We've seen this with, and look, this is not even an issue of strongman dictators. I'm just using that example because it is a fact. A lot of these folks are not wearing masks because, they're not wearing masks at all. And this is people who are dictators and also people like Boris Johnson, who is not a dictator either. So this goes, from people who model this dictator behavior and who are dictators to people like Boris Johnson, who is not a dictator, but certainly is being pushed in that direction or is inhabiting, these kinds of things that you would find dictators doing, this herd immunity thing. It's all the people around him who are throwing these things around. Where's the leadership? Where is the leadership? I can point to Brazil. I just mentioned Bolsonaro. I can point to the UK, the US. I can point to Belarus, obviously, where you've got people in the streets after months now. It's been 3 months. This guy, or 2 months, or whatever it is, this guy who claimed that, this guy who's been a dictator there for 20 years, who claims that he won another election, which he clearly didn't. If you follow Belarus and the story of that election, that was absolutely stolen. So if Donald Trump has anything better to do, why doesn't he talk about Belarus instead of talking garbage and tweeting garbage? And why doesn't the media just stop reporting? And instead of reporting on every tweet that this fool sends, why don't you just say, dude, you lost? That should be everything and the be all and end all of it. Dude, you lost. And then move on to the next news story. Do not spend any more time feeding the beast. And the media loves to do this. It's not that the media is stupid. They're doing this for ratings. They're doing this to generate more controversy, to get you to watch them breathlessly talk in repetitive tones about the same stupid thing without educating you, without informing you, without bringing any background or context. It's just pathetic. Again, I ask you, where is the leadership? Where is it? Where is the leadership? I can point to other countries. I mean, where's the leadership in the Philippines? The dictatorship. Where's the leadership in all these other places? Saudi Arabia, dictatorship. Where's the leadership? I can tell you where it is. It's in New Zealand with Jacinda Ardern, just won, along with her Labour Party in New Zealand, another term in office. And that happened last month. And she has been a leader, and she is a leader. That's leadership. Someone who confiscated guns within 2 or 3 weeks of a terrorist attack on Muslims by this white man in Christchurch, who went to not one, but two mosques and murdered and assassinated at least 50 people. And I think he's been put behind bars for the rest of his life. If I last checked, and maybe I have to look at that story again. Jacinda Ardern got rid of all these assault weapons and all these handguns and whatnot. Got them out of New Zealand for good. I mean, got people to turn them in, got rid of them. I mean, that's leadership. There was no hemming and hawing or if, ands, buts, candy and nuts, nothing. She just got rid of them. Got rid of all these guns. That's leadership. Angela Merkel, Germany, Chancellor. That's leadership. She's a leader. Now, she's going to be leaving that post, by the way, next year. Last I checked. It was actually 2019. She announced that she was going to be leading the chancellorship, leaving it in 2021, and was not going to seek another term. I think she was still going to continue on as a politician. She just wasn't going to seek the chancellorship in 2021. So she was going to leave office. So someone else is going to be chancellor next year, sometime next year. But Angela Merkel, I know she's received criticism in a lot of quarters for various things, but I think that she has done generally speaking, a pretty darn good job. Now, look, there's some things that she's not done a good job on, but I think overall she has been a leader, a solid leader, and one of the key anchors in Europe with all that's going on there, the far-right push in places like Austria, in places even in Germany. I mean, there's in that parliament, there is a contingent of far-right. I forgot what the name of the party is, but they are beginning to make some noise there. It's a small contingent, but they're noisy. And then you've got these anti-mask protests in Germany. You've got them in other countries as well, not just in the United States. But you notice something about the names that I mentioned, just two of the names I mentioned when I said, here's leadership. Do you know what else? Do you notice what else about them is very obvious? Both are female. Both of them are female. Jacinda Ardern and Angela Merkel. And I did an episode about this way back, maybe March or April of this year, about female leadership and how refreshing it was to see more women in leadership positions in power, and how a woman wields political power, and how the overwhelming majority of women in positions of power wield power not only differently from men, and not only more effectively than men, but without the chest beating and the podium thumping and the strutting around and posturing. The bottom line is women just want to get things done. That's the way I see it. I see it as women want to get results. They are results oriented. And look, I know that sounds like I'm generalizing, but I am telling you. Women in leadership, more often than not, and there are always exceptions, right? We can always point to some notable exceptions in terms of how effective they were as leaders and what that meant to the people they were leading. One of them is Margaret Thatcher, the UK Prime Minister, who has been celebrated to no end. But her policies were disastrous for Britain. Disastrous. I know, because I lived in the UK, lived in England when she was ruling, especially in the 70s. And it was not pretty, let me tell you. And then into the 80s, where it was not pretty. She finally was, I think she resigned in 1990. She got pushed out in 1990. Decided to step down. But this was, a lot of people in the Conservative Party regard her with great reverence. I'm not one of them. I'm not a conservative. I just don't think she was a very effective leader at all for the country. Not with the policies she had. Not at all. And I also think of, to an extent, Theresa May. Same thing. And these are the only two female prime ministers that the United Kingdom has ever had. That's two more than the United States have ever had presidents. Although we now have a fair shot. Oh, Lord, I should not use that word. We have a fair chance that now, or at least starting on January 20th, there is a fair chance that we could have a female president of the United States within the next 5 years or so. There is a fair chance of that happening. Of course, the Democratic Party has to be smart. And as I've said in a prior episode or two, get away from the centrist posturing that leaves nobody anywhere and leaves voters in contempt of you because you're not standing for anything but the same corporate order that you have propped yourself up on, which is another failure of leadership and messaging. But I've already talked about that, so I don't want to repeat myself from an episode or two ago. My question is, where is the leadership? And it's usually these men. It usually is men. Now, there's some male leaders who have been, I think, effective and have led well. But where's the leadership? I really want to know where the leadership is. It's not with the person who's in the White House at the moment. He was never a leader. He was never a president. He was only a destroyer. And he was only a criminal, only. His whole mission was to make money from getting into that office. To make money. To grift. To steal. Which is basically the same thing, right? This was never, he never wanted to ever govern. Never. Plays golf all the time. He's been, there was some survey that was done, there was some analysis that was done that showed that Donald Trump played golf for 310 days or something like that. 300 and some odd days. Almost a whole blooming year of playing golf. And tweeting and lying. Those two things were not included in that analysis. We need leadership. And we don't have it in the White House. We don't have it at 10 Downing Street. We don't have it in a number of places around the world. So I think we have to do something about that and start voting in people who actually have leadership skills. Why don't we do that? Oh, yeah. Well, America actually did vote somebody in just a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago with the early vote. They actually got someone who has leadership skills. His name is Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is his number 2. And we're going to push them to do something that has a life-affirming agenda, not this corporate centrist agenda, even though we know that Joe Biden is a centrist and a corporatist, and we know the same of Kamala Harris. She's a corporatist, essentially. There's no secret there. She's not maybe as centrist as Joe Biden is, but she's still kind of, look, I think she will veer to that area when and where needed, and when she doesn't, she doesn't. But I have confidence that, God forbid anything happened to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris will be an infinitely better leader than these men that you've got here. I mean, and again, I'm going to also say some of the women that we have as leaders in this country, in these states, have been abysmal. So I do want to point not just to Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May, who, just not effective. And in some ways, she was I don't want to say the word victim, but she was trapped. And she didn't lead effectively. She just didn't. I just don't think she was an effective leader. But look at the women here in the United States, some of the women here who have not been good leaders. Now, there have been some very good leaders like AOC, that's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's also Ilhan Omar, who is, I think, is a strong leader. Now, she's faced a lot of criticisms. I think some of those criticisms, most of those criticisms, do not have, I think look, I would say that she's just been absolutely attacked. That's what I'll say. But she's a leader. She comes through it all and she leads. And she puts programs out there on the table to help people. She believes in a holistic method of everybody having to push for the greater good, an agenda for the people. That's Ilhan Omar. And there are other leaders, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib. They really believe in the people. They believe in doing the work of the people, for the people. But then you've got these governors. You've got Kim Reynolds, governor of Iowa. She's been a disaster for the state. You have Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, a disaster for the state, a disaster. The rates of coronavirus in those two states are through the roof. Hospitalizations are through the roof. I mean, these two governors famously said, no mask mandate. You don't have to wear a mask here. And the meat packers, go back to work. Stop your complaining. And people died. And more people got this virus. Kay Ivey, Alabama, earlier this year, she sentenced an innocent black man to his death and was so excited to see it happen. I believe she attended the execution, or if she didn't, she fought back against the ruling of a court. I think it was the Supreme Court or somebody that had said, no, we stay the execution, or they then overturned it, I think. Whatever happened, but she kept pushing. Oh, she got her wish to see a black man fry. Ooh. Does that turn you on, Governor? Do you like that stuff? I mean, after all of these states, you had white people en masse watching black people be lynched, fried, everything, burned at the stake. That happened only a few years ago now in history. I mean, that's not leadership, right? That's terrorism. Right? And you've got a senator down in Mississippi who incredibly won re-election, beat the same guy twice. I mean, unbelievable. Twice in 3 years. It's incredible. Cindy Hyde-Smith, who once said that she would sit in the front row of a lynching. Oh, that'd be my great honor. Paraphrasing her. She won on that, by the way, in Mississippi, because you got these racist white voters who, when it comes to choosing between a racist white woman and a black man who is fighting for decency, picks the racist white woman every time. I do have hope for Raphael Warnock, by the way, in Georgia against Kelly Loeffler. Not heard anything racist from her, so we'll see. That's the Georgia race, by the way, that I hope that you are aware of, and I hope you help Reverend Raphael Warnock. December 7th, by the way, is the last day to register to vote in Georgia for that race. And also do not forget about Jon Ossoff. Same state, same registration deadline. He faces off against David Perdue, a white man who is a racist. Where's the leadership? Where is it? Welcome back. This is particularly infuriating to me. This whole thing about Governor Newsom. I think that California Governor Gavin Newsom has done some good things. I like what he did with halting the death penalty and getting rid of the instrumentalities of it in the state. I think that's very important. After the debacle that had been happening, and the death penalty is just abhorrent. It's just evil. The state turning into the killing machine. And we already have a state that is a killing machine. It kills black people. The police. So, among other entities, right, that are, or whether it's, I could go on. I really could go on and have and will in the future about these things, because we need to end this stuff. And the way we do it is getting rid of a system that is all about this and building instead a new system that is predicated upon laws that acknowledge, respect, and protect the humanity of black people in this country, of brown people, of Native Americans in this country. That is what we've got to have. Meanwhile, on the other side of the street, there's Gavin Newsom, who attended a French laundry party. Do you know what the French laundry is? And I promised that I was going to come back to this. The French laundry is this she place, this fancy dancy place, where you're paying $350 a meal. $350 for a meal. Oh, the press release said. They paid for their own meal. Yeah, and so? This is from the San Francisco Chronicle, one of the worst newspapers in the country, by the way. I'm not afraid to say it. Coming from living in this town, that everybody in San Francisco knows that the San Francisco Chronicle is the worst, is a really horrible newspaper. It's just god awful. Never used to be that way. Back in the 70s and 80s, the Chronicle was a lot better than it is now. Anyway, here's the But I'm going to read you a headline from it nonetheless, and some of the portions of the story. I'm going to link to this particular story in the liner notes of this episode. The article is called "Newsom Attended French Laundry Party with More Households Than California Advises During Pandemic." This is dated November 13th. Alexei Koseff is the author. I'm going to read a portion of this. Governor Gavin Newsom attended a birthday party for a political advisor last week that included people from several households, the type of gathering his administration has discouraged during the coronavirus pandemic. The dinner the night of November 6th at the famed French Laundry in Yountville in Napa County brought together at least 12 people to celebrate the 50th birthday of Jason Kinney, a longtime friend and advisor to Newsom, who is also a partner at the lobbying firm Axiom Advisors. In addition to the governor, his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, was in attendance. By the way, Jennifer Siebel Newsom is a leader, because I'll tell you why. She's done a lot of very good work dealing with issues pertaining to women, representation with women. Did a documentary called Misrepresentation, MISS, as in Miss Jones, Misrepresentation. And also has done a lot of work for children, a lot of work for all kinds of different causes, climate. That's a leader. Her husband is not a leader. I'm sorry, he's not. Not on this coronavirus. It's all posturing and all, so let me stick out my chest and get. And I've interviewed Gavin Newsom very briefly, by the way, and I kind of had a very light-hearted moment with him at a movie premiere. About 12, maybe less than 12 years ago now. It was probably about 9 or 8 or 7 or 6 or 5. Whatever it was. It was for a film called Extraordinary Measures. And Harrison Ford was on the red carpet, literally down the street from where I am. And we had a nice little, Harrison Ford was really good. Really good. Asked him 2 questions. It was just a quick on the red carpet thing. Because as some of you know, I do film as well. Been a film critic for a long time. Haven't been doing a lot of reviews lately. But nonetheless, that's still something I do along with the daytime work that I do. But look, the point here is I interviewed Gavin Newsom briefly and talked to him. And I said something about him. I said, who would you like to play in a movie? He wasn't governor at the time. I think he was still mayor of San Francisco at the time. Or maybe he was lieutenant governor of California at the time. Because Gavin Newsom, who has a home here in San Francisco and has a home in a couple of other places in California, was once the mayor of San Francisco. And there was a whole scandal around him. He had alcoholism issues and got into an affair with someone with an AIDS. It was just, again, I don't want to really get into people's personals. That's not my thing. Because we all go through things, and that's, human beings, we go through things, right? We, even though I've gone off on Jeffrey Toobin and I have a new audio rant that I will also link to that you will probably get either joy or a lot of distress from listening to. I don't know. But Jeffrey Toobin's different because that's something very different from people who get entangled in these things, and it's complex and it's complicated, and those things happen to adults. That's just anyway. Look, I interviewed Gavin Newsom. Just really not even an interview. Just asked him a couple of questions. And one thing I asked him, I said to him, who are you auditioning? Who would you like to play most? Actually, let me see. Maybe would you agree with this choice, Mr. Newsom, or whatever I said to him? I think I called him Mr. Newsom. He Gavin is his name. He's colloquially known throughout San Francisco and the whole state as Gavin. He has a few businesses and the wine business. He's doing well for himself, Mr. Newsom. Well-moneyed and all that kind of thing. I think he's actually a good person, but I just don't think he's the greatest leader that we have here in California. But anyway, I asked him. I said to him, "So who would you play? Who would you play in a movie? Who would you most play?" I think you'd play Pat Riley of the Los Angeles Lakers. And then Newsom says to me, that's a hair gel joke, my friend." And he started to laugh. I laughed. Because, Governor Newsom, his hair is slicked back, kind of like Pat Riley back in the day when he was, prowling the sidelines with the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers of the 1980s, he into the early 90s as well. And he would prowl the sideline with the Armani suit. And I don't know whether Governor Newsom wears Armani suits. He may. But the hair slicked back is unmistakable. And, but that was my lighthearted moment with the now governor, or the future governor at that point, but now Governor Newsom. But here's the article. I want to continue this. Newsom attended French Laundry. The French Laundry ain't some shabby place. This is a real shishi upscale place. So the interesting thing about the article is Jason Kinney, a longtime friend and advisor, who is also a partner at a lobbying firm. So where is this possibility? So he's a lobbyist or a partner at a lobbying firm. I've got nothing against lobby. People lobby, right? But there's money involved, right? And what causes? Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. State guidelines, I'm reading in the article now, limit gatherings defined as, quote, social situations that bring together people from different households at the same time in a single place or space to no more than 3 households. Representatives for Kinney and Newsom declined to specify how many households the diners represented, but did not dispute that it was more than 3. Oh, dear. And then they go on and on here about, well, it was outdoors. There was more people than you're supposed to have. It doesn't matter whether it's outdoors or not. And that's why I think these situations where people are sitting outdoors eating is just ridiculous. Oh, it's outdoors, so you can have it outdoors. But you're eating, you're talking, you're shouting, you're laughing, and you're in a cluster. And then there's one next door to you. Then there's a bank next door, a shield, but it's a group of people next door. You've got people congregating near you if they're on the sidewalk near you. I just don't get it. It's insane. And it's just insane. Here's what Newsom said. Newsom issued an additional statement. This is after the Chronicle published a story online about the dinner. Newsom issued an additional statement acknowledging that attending the party was an error in judgment. Quote, this is Newsom here, the governor of this state, with 40 million people in it. Quote, while our family followed the restaurant's health protocols and took safety precautions, we should have modeled better behavior and not joined the dinner. Throughout the pandemic, Newsom has urged Californians to maintain social distancing and to minimize mixing between households. He has redoubled those calls as coronavirus rates have risen this fall. I think that leadership is begging here. What do you think? We've seen so many instances of this. Dominic Cummings, thank God he's gone in the UK. Thank God he is no longer part of Boris Johnson's, whatever the heck that is they call a government in my native England. I don't know, in the what is going on over there? I mean, the White House is just, I'm going to get to them in a very short moment. But this is insane. I mean, Dominic Cummings, and again, I had the conservative counselor Claire Pearsall on this podcast just 2 or 3 days ago. No, last Friday. That would be 2 days ago, 3 days ago now. Oh gosh, my days are all mixed up. It was Friday that she was on with me, and we had this conversation about what's going on in UK politics and with Dominic Cummings and Brexit and Boris Johnson. And again, she pointed this out about Dominic Cummings driving to Durham, Castle Durham, or I forgot the exact name, during the lockdown, breaching the guidelines. And the country was calling for his head. They were rightly so, calling for him to go. And no, Boris Johnson, no, I'm not, I've got every confidence in him and every confidence in Dominic. I think he's a man who's just tried so hard, and I've got every confidence in him and robust leadership and just sparkling, full of beans, just fantastic. His leadership is just, I can't really do a very good Boris Johnson. But yeah, and everybody was rightly upset because they had sacrificed. People had seen family members die or had not been able to see them, right? They died alone, and family couldn't even see them and send them off with a goodbye, a farewell. And you got Dominic Cummings and his wife traipsing around the countryside in Durham or traipsing around there. It's a blooming insult. And we're seeing this. These folks think that they are above everything. Whether they are elites, whether they are moneyed, whatever, they think that they can break the rules. I mean, this happened all over the UK. Matt Hancock came down with this virus, and all that health group. Sir Patrick came down with it. I think Chris Whitty might have come down with it. Sir Patrick Vallance. I think he came down with the virus. He's the health minister. So you had the health minister or whomever, the medical guy, he came down with it. You had the health secretary, Matt Hancock, he came down with the virus. Boris Johnson, he came down with the virus. Boris Johnson was on death's door. And Boris Johnson, without a mask, appearing with an MP, Lee Anderson, no mask, no physical distance, and now Lee Anderson, the MP, has the virus, tested positive, and now Boris Johnson is now for 2 weeks going to be self-isolating. Again, this guy was at death's door 7 months ago, and he had this virus. He obviously has not heard of common sense. And common sense ain't common anymore. He hasn't heard of logic. He hasn't heard of being smart. And he hasn't learned his lesson. He didn't learn a darn thing from 7 months ago. On death's door. But I'm going to go out there again. I'm bursting with antibodies and I'm fighting fit. It's a circus. And it's a very deadly circus. Same as in the White House. Nearly everybody there has come down with coronavirus. Everybody. Donald Trump was in hospital for 3 days. Had difficulty breathing, may have been put, and then they say he was not on a ventilator. This guy was carrying this virus around on a debate stage. You had that doctor. Remember that doctor? The White House physician? That guy, I forget his name now. That guy was he was a joke. Just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And then you got Donald Trump ripping a mask off. You've got him putting Secret Service members in danger. And now you've got hundreds of them infected. And then he's gone on the COVID tour and infected all these people, including lots of Secret Service, his own aides. He had a super spreader event in September 26th, a Saturday afternoon, the Rose Garden affair, the Garden of COVID, not the Garden of Eden, the Garden of COVID. And yes, he wanted to put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, didn't he? But then he got all these people sick. Mike Lee, the senator, sick. The president of Notre Dame, sick. Chris Christie, sick. The former governor of New Jersey, who, by the way, was in intensive care for a week like Boris Johnson was. The guy was on death's door. And now Christie has lived to tell. Thank goodness for that, for him. I don't want to see the guy die. But we've had someone die at a Trump rally. His name was Herman Cain, a former candidate for the Republican Party's presidential nomination. He died attending a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No mask, no distance, no nothing. You had people tearing off the stickers on seats that said, "Don't sit here." Tearing them off. Trump people. This guy, Trump, super spreader events. People getting sick. And then there was a study done that said at least 700 people have died over the course of this last 7 or 8 months from Trump rallies being infected by coronavirus. No masking, no physical distance, everybody's clustered. They have this little fake shot. Oh, there's about 40 people behind him wearing a mask, But what they don't show you are the thousands of people in the audience that he is looking out to, who the vast majority of whom are not wearing a mask. And because something is outside, it doesn't mean that you are less likely to get it. When you're standing amongst a crowd of thousands of people with no distancing for over 2 hours, Donald Trump loves to flap his orange gums, and he's going to talk for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And people are shouting and cheering and screaming, no mask on. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, there you go. And all these people, Stephen Miller, Katie Miller, who, their spouses, both of them came down with this virus. Kayleigh McEnany came down with the virus while doubling as the White House press secretary and a Trump 2020 campaign advisor official. I mean, where's the conflict of interest? I mean, have you seen it? Have you seen the conflict of interest? Is it under the desk or is it on the lapel pin of Kayleigh McEnany, who talks about, well, I'm going to be attending, I'm sure that Donald Trump will be attending his own inauguration. All these people, Hope Hicks got this virus, and I mean, the list goes on and on, mate. I'm telling you, in that White House, at least 100 different people have come down with this virus. And in Downing Street, the same thing. You've got dozens of people now coming down with this virus. I think Carrie Simmons came down with it while she was pregnant. And thank goodness, no complications there. She gave birth a few months ago now, and everything appears to be fine, thank goodness. And I mean, this was just crazy. So you had Boris Johnson, his fiance, Carrie Simons, who had to tell her fiance, look, you've got to get rid of this guy, Dominic. I mean, this is just, when your fiance is telling you to get rid of somebody, and I've got no problem, of course, with a fiance, a spouse telling their spouse what to do or giving them advice. I mean, Nancy Reagan did that, didn't she? Did that a lot for Ronald Reagan. He obviously didn't heed some of that advice, did he? I mean, Iran-Contra, can we start there? But come on. I mean, I don't have a problem with Carrie Simons. I don't have a problem with Carrie Simons. I have a problem with the lack of leadership, the zero leadership, the nothing leadership of Boris Johnson. And he's being led by a puppet, a phantom who's puppeteering for him. Guy's walking out of 10 Downing Street with a box. I mean, Dominic Cummings, really? Has no respect for anything. All these people with coronavirus in 10 Downing Street. I told you, the health secretary and all these people. Now this latest MP, and then these other MPs now self-isolating. And over here, you've got all these people with coronavirus in power. And they don't seem to give a rat's. Kellyanne Conway, same thing. She came down with this thing. Her daughter, Claudia Conway, went on TikTok or something and released the information. And she caught her mother, candidly coming at the camera, taking a swipe at the camera. It's just, you can't script, you cannot make this up. But it's distressing. It's really disturbing because there's no leadership. And I don't think there's meant to be. I think that's the thing. These people are not trying to lead anything. They really do either want herd immunity, they want freedom from responsibility, they want libertarianism, they want Ayn Rand. That's what's driving this, among other things. Do what you want, No consequence. Selfishness is a virtue. Stepping on the person in front of you or, around you is fine. You get on a higher plane when you do that. That was Ayn Rand. And you know what Ayn Rand did when she was sick in her dying? You know what she was begging for? She begged for Medicare. She begged for it. I'm telling you, like a dog begs for a bone. It's not the nicest analogy, because it conjures up those very misogynistic things. And I immediately apologize, because that's wrong. She begged for health care when she railed for years. Oh no, if someone gets sick, they shouldn't be treated. They should just write it out. I wonder where we've heard that before. Just write it out. If you get sick with this virus, just write it out. Ride it like a wave. Ride it like Christopher Cross. Ride like the wind, right? Christopher Cross got this virus too, by the way. Christopher Cross is one of the great musicians. He's been around, terrific, Arthur's theme from the movie, Arthur, Best That You Can Do. When you get drunk between the rule in New York City or something like that, I know it's crazy, but it's true. You know the song. I'm sure you do. He came down with this virus too. He couldn't walk. He was paralyzed. I know people who've come down with this virus. Some of them have lost their voice. And we've got people who are in these positions that are supposedly leaders, who are not leading at all. And I think it's by design. Can someone really be this incompetent? This is not incompetence. I've always said this, especially in the case of Donald Trump. This is about something different. This is about destroying any notion of responsibility. And I think that Donald Trump is a destroyer. I've said this many times. I've just really... I just keep shaking my head, and I think it's going to drop off from all the shaking of it that I've done lately. The SMH count on my Twitter feed is really through the roof. I mean, the amount of times I've typed those 3 letters of the alphabet at the end of one of my tweets or in the middle of it at the popcorn REEL, it set Guinness Book of World Records. I mean, we've still got 6 weeks left of the 2020 calendar year. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through the rest of it without typing those 3 letters in a tweet. I doubt that that's going to be the case. I'm going to be typing SMH again. In addition to the many hundreds of times I've done so already this year. So what do we do about all of this? 1, we vote in people who have proven that they have leadership. I mean, the record of Boris Johnson, the record of Donald Trump, the records of a number of these people before they came into office should have cued the average person in. Certainly did not cue in 73 plus million people this time, or the 62 million people the last time on where Donald Trump is concerned. And it didn't cue in the people who voted Boris Johnson in to be leader of the Conservative Party back in July and of 2019, and didn't cue in the many millions of people who voted for conservative leadership, whether through their own MP, in December of 2019. This isn't leadership, it's something else. And what we do about it is we vote people in who actually have a track record of leading, and getting results. How do you vote in Tommy Tuberville, a bloomin' college coach, to the U.S. Senate in Alabama? How does that possibly happen? This guy doesn't even know what World War II is about. Oh, it was the fight against socialism. Lord, you can't make it. You can't make this up, mate. You know, it's not funny. It's not funny because this reflects not on him. It reflects on the voters of Alabama, some of whom are racist, some of whom are ignorant, some of whom are undereducated. It's a reflection on the education system. It's a reflection on white voters who are racist. How would you vote in a college football coach? No experience, no leadership in politics, never been there, never governed. He's a bloomin', or was, a bloomin' college football coach in the United States. You know, football, the thing you play with your hands in America. This guy was a college football coach. And he didn't just beat Doug Jones, who is an actual leader, prosecuted the Klan, prosecuted the people who killed 4 little black girls, killed these 4 innocent young, I mean, these girls are all 12, 13, 14 max, 11. I mean, these white men who murdered her, these 4 girls, not her, just four women, 4 girls, excuse me. 4 little girls. And Doug Jones prosecuted them, right? And what does Alabama do? Oh, no, we don't want Doug Jones. We want the football coach who doesn't know jack about jack and who sits there and tells you, oh, World War II was, it was a fight against socialism. The Nazis were a national socialistic party, but it wasn't socialistic in that way. Right? That was not what that was about. And no, Tommy, I can't believe that guy's going to be a senator come January. That'll be fun. This guy, I mean, this was about fascism, mate. This is about Nazism. This is about domination of the earth and Hitler and what he was doing. I mean, this guy didn't even, you want to talk about an ignorant human being? What an ignorant bit of cow dung. He didn't know the 3, again, he didn't, like Rick Perry, didn't know the 3 branches of government. Or in Rick Perry's case, it was, well, which 3 would you like to abolish? And he couldn't name 3. This is very dangerous, actually. I'm laughing, but it's dangerous. This is dangerous. Again, Tommy Tuberville, 3 branches of government. This is what he said. The House, I swear to you, this is what Tommy Tuberville said. The 3 branches of government in the United States. This is what he said. The House, the Senate, and the executive. I'm not joking. I'm not joking, okay? I'm dead serious. For those of you who need civics lessons, because we really do need them in this country, because no one teaches civics anymore. The 3 branches of government in the United States are the legislative branch, which comprises the House and Senate, the executive branch, which is the White House, and the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court. Those, dear listener, are the three branches of the United States government. Tommy Tuberville. This isn't a total... that's a mess. A hot mess. That is hot cow dung. You are talking a hot mess of cow dung right there. This guy said, in an interview, or on a press conference, Al Gore was president-elect for 30 days or whatever. He was never president-elect of anything. This is during the 2000 election. This is during the period of time. It was 36 days. Oh my God. Tommy Tuberville. That's about the voters. That's about racist voters, miseducated voters, ignorant voters. And they rejected Doug Jones, and that's what that was about. Oh my God. I'll be right back. The following segment contains foul language that some may find objectionable.
This building needs to be shut down until there are full health and legal investigations. Mike Turzai, you need to resign. Shame on you. For those of you that don't know, Mike Turzai is the Republican Speaker of the House, one of the people that has joined in going after the Secretary of Health, one of the most qualified people in this country to deal with COVID-19. And yet every single day you have perpetuated the lie that it was safe for Pennsylvanians to be outside, that it was safe for Pennsylvanians to interact with each other. Every single day you have dragged us to this legislature so that you could go industry by industry by industry and explain how it was safe. Even using the House as an example. I sat in state government a week ago with one of these members while it was explained to us that the room we were in was the perfect example of how safe it could be. I didn't donate my kidney to save somebody's life so that I could die at the hands of Republicans who are being callous liars. My colleagues' children, my colleagues' families, those are so much more important than any lie. Those are so much more important than any cover-up. And yet here we are right now. How dare you? How dare you put our lives at risk? How dare you put our families at risk and pretend that it was about looking out for your own? We know you're looking out for your own. This is what gerrymandered leadership in Pennsylvania looks like. So, Mr. Speaker, all eyes on you. Are you going to continue to lie about your cover-up? Are you going to continue to put lives at risk? Are you going to continue to think that advancing the interests of the big banks and the big business whose pocket you're in is more important than saving lives? Well, you don't get my fucking life. My life belongs to me. It does not belong to you. You had no business putting me and my friends and my colleagues at risk in the way that you have. You're a scoundrel, if there ever was one, Mike Turzai. You have no business in government. You have no business in the private sector. I believe that you should be investigated. I believe that you should be prosecuted. And I believe that you should be in jail. How dare you? So I'll continue to report back. I'll continue to not mince my words. I'm a Democratic member of the Pennsylvania House who just found out that my Republican leadership, in a cover-up to make sure that we didn't know that COVID-19 had breached the House of Representatives, was lying to its members and covering up from its members about that. The only way we found out is because a reporter asked one of our members, and our members got it out of their leadership. You belong in jail. Shame on you. And thank you to everybody that is asking how we're doing and what's going on. The answer is we don't know. The answer is a whole bunch of my colleagues are on the phone right now with their loved ones saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I might have done to you and not known that I did it. And it was Mike Turzai that did it. It was Republican leadership that did it. It was Russ Diamond that did it every single day, slamming a Secretary of Health for saying that it was risky for us to be together every single day, walking around this house without a mask. And where are you right now? You're in quarantine because you might be spreading a deadly disease to all of us and our families. This is shameful. This is disgusting. This is the height of Republican hypocrisy. This is what happens when Republicans gerrymander a state. This is what happens when Republicans take control. Fuck, I have spent so much of my time here trying to see beyond the blind, disgusting partisanship, and now that partisanship has grown deadly. Deadly. So no Mike Turzai, no Pennsylvania Republicans, no to the Pennsylvania House. I see you. We see you. My life doesn't belong to you. The lives of my colleagues don't belong to you. The lives of their friends, their family, their spouses don't belong to you. And you know what? The lives of the constituents of your colleagues who you covered up for don't belong to you either. Right now, you should be using your money, your resources to study every single thing that those members did with your blessing. And you should be reaching out to every single one of those families, every single one of those Pennsylvanians, making sure they're safe, making sure they're healthy, but you're not.
Yeah, that was Brian Sims. Brian Sims, the Democratic legislator in Pennsylvania earlier this year, going off, and rightly so, on these Republican state legislators in Pennsylvania who attended a legislative session on several occasions with Democrats. Two of the members were tested positive for coronavirus. And these Republicans never, ever told the Democrats that they were having these meetings with that these two legislators who were attending these meetings had coronavirus, a deadly contagious virus and disease. Never told them. That ain't leadership. That's a death cult. And you heard how Brian Sims reacted to that. The whole video of that is online. Maybe I'll try to post a link to that as well. But I'm telling you, leadership, I don't think so. You know, I want to, we need to vote people in who've got leadership experience, and we need to start running for office. And we need to also look more seriously at the kinds of things that women in leadership positions are doing. And we need to start pushing more women to lead. We need to start doing that. I mean, they are beginning to. I would like to see more women in the Senate here in the United States. I'd like to see more women as governors here in the United States. I'd like to see more black women in particular in the Senate, because we've lost one now, right? We've lost Kamala Harris. I mean, she's going on to become vice president. That ain't a bad move upward. But we've lost there's now no, as of January the 20th, there's not going to be a black woman in the Senate. And I would like the same governor that I chastised and criticized earlier in this episode, Mr. Governor Gavin Newsom, to pick Karen Bass as the replacement. That will be your black woman in the Senate. And by the way, Karen Bass, who is the head of the Congressional Black Caucus here in the U.S. and is a congresswoman out of Southern California, out of Los Angeles, is very good. I think she would really be a really good senator. And I nominate Karen Bass. That's leader. She is a leader. She's more progressive. I like Karen Bass. Really good leader, effective. I think she's done a very good job. And I think she deserves the promotion. So Gavin, if you're listening, you really should hire Karen Bass, the congresswoman out of Southern California, Los Angeles, specifically. I want to leave you with this from Kay Burley. Now, Kay Burley in the UK, an interviewer, news person, anchor, has her own show on Sky News in the UK. Look, Kay Burley, I think, is a very good interviewer. Now, look, sometimes I don't like some of the editorializing that she did last week, particularly when she said that, and it's not semantical, she talked about Biden declaring that he was the winner. And he never said that, right? This was before the projection was made on Saturday, November the 7th. She had hosted one of her shows. While she was out here, actually, in the United States. She was in D.C., actually, across the country from here, opposite side of the country. And she had said something, and I was watching it. And she said, well, Joe Biden declared victory. And he didn't. He said, I know I'm going to be the winner. I'm confident that I'll be the winner. That is not declaring victory. That is expressing confidence. And I tweeted her about that. I said, Kay, this is beneath you. You're better than this. Why are you saying that? Because she said it on air. Oh, Joe Biden has declared victory. He never did. This is before the result came in. This is before you heard the projection of Wolf Blitzer.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to make this projection because CNN projects Biden wins Pennsylvania. The former vice president in his third run for the highest office, pulling off a rare defeat of a sitting commander-in-chief.
Yeah, that projection. But look, Kay Burley, though, I think and I know there have been other things that Kay Burley's done that people point to that are, not great. Look, we've all done that. I know, not what she did. Punching, taking a swipe at I guess another woman or another reporter or something. I don't remember. But it's out. But look, that's not the point here. The point here is that I think Kay Burley, when she interviews powerful people or people in leadership, she knows what she's really good at that. I think she is. I think she's excellent at it. And she does a number here. And it's not about doing a number. She just gets these people to look stupid because she asks the right questions. And if you are a real leader, you will answer those questions honestly. But the Health Secretary of the United Kingdom, Mr. Matt Hancock, didn't know what to do, and usually doesn't when Kay Burley interviews him. I want to just play you some of the excerpts from that interview right now. And I think they speak for themselves. The interview was done this morning on Kay Burley's show on Sky News. Take a listen to this.
The thing is that when you are in close contact with somebody, then you do need to self-isolate if they test positive. And that's exactly what the Prime Minister's done.
You also need to wear a mask when you're in close contact with people, especially indoors, don't you? And they're not. And look what's happened.
Well, there are, of course, COVID-secure guidelines for how you operate at work. And this is true in Downing Street or in any other work environment. And then if you test positive, it's really good that the test result came back so quickly. That is now happening in the majority of cases. And that's good. We've brought those test turnaround times down. And then contact tracing, working effectively, got in contact with the Prime Minister. So this is how the system ought to operate. And then obviously both Lee Anderson and the Prime Minister following those rules. And in fact, you mentioned just on the bulletin then, we're expanding this testing capacity further. We've built 500,000
We're going to come
tests a day.
to that. No.
And we're going to more than double that.
Health Secretary, we're coming to that. Why on earth are they not wearing a mask? As a result, our Prime Minister is incapacitated on what could be one of the most important weeks ever for Brexit. They should be wearing masks. You know that. I know that. Why are they not doing it?
Well, there's COVID-secure guidelines in any workplace. And what I'd say is actually, I've absolutely no doubt that the Prime Minister will be able to drive the agenda forward and communicate with the public in the way that he does normally, but just differently because it'll be by video conference and and not face to face because he's self-isolating.
Okay, do you wear a mask when you're in number 10?
I see the Prime Minister. The majority of times I see the Prime Minister, I see him by Zoom, actually. And that's effective because we can have the meeting and I can stay in my office and he stays in number 10. But I did see him. I saw him a couple of times last week before he saw Mr. Anderson, for instance, in the House of Commons chamber where I was for PMQs last week. And masks are required outside of the chamber, but not in it. So there's COVID-secure guidelines in all workplaces.
Okay. Do you wear a mask when you're in number 10, Health Secretary?
Not always, no, because the COVID-secure guidelines for that building don't require it at all times. Well, it's according to the rules that are set out for each workplace in the whole country. So different workplaces have different rules according to what is appropriate there. And you'll know that from your work and everybody else. You know, one of the things that we've done is put in place those guidelines.
Health Secretary, my boss didn't nearly die from COVID-19. My boss is not in a position where he now has to self-isolate again for 2 weeks because he's coming into contact with somebody who's got COVID-19. I'm sure my viewers will make up their own minds this morning. You said that the Prime Minister will be able to do his job just as effectively. What if he needs to hop on the Eurostar and have a chat with our European friends, as you always call them? He can't do that. So his position is limited because they didn't wear a piece of cloth covering their face.
Well, firstly, it's Lord Frost who's gone to Brussels and is our chief negotiator. And I'm sure that if the Prime Minister needs to speak to anybody in Europe, then he'll be able to do that by Zoom.
President Trump still hanging on in there. President-elect Biden has described him as an embarrassment and it won't help his legacy. What do you think?
Well, I'm absolutely not going to get into the domestic politics of America. There's enough to be getting on with the domestic politics of the UK. But what we are doing is looking forward very much to working with the incoming Biden administration. As I said, on so many big topics where we need to work together and where the agenda of this government, for instance, on climate change, with COP26 coming up next year, is so closely aligned with the agenda of the... it's important, you see. I'm completely comfortable with it.
We've done it. I'm sure we'll come back to it, and it's not really your brief, and we need to come on to your brief in just a second. I'm just checking whether you are completely comfortable with the way the leader of the free world is behaving himself over the last 48 hours particularly.
Well, I've got absolutely nothing to say about that. What I am doing is really looking forward, and we're very, very positive about the incoming Biden administration. For instance, on my area, he is committed to engaging with and reforming the international health system, the World Health Organization, rather than leaving it. I think that's really positive. That's the position the UK has taken throughout this. We need reform, but we need to be in there making those reforms rather than walking away. And so I'm really looking forward personally to working with the Biden administration too.
I'm surprised. Yeah. OK. I'm surprised that you have nothing to say about a president who is openly, via Twitter, stoking up hostility in his own country. I wonder what you'll miss most about Dominic Cummings.
Well, I've worked very closely with him, and he's been very effective at driving things forward. But I look forward to keeping that pace. That incredible pace that we've had to drive through this government, especially during the pandemic. And I can't wait till the day that we've been able to crack the pandemic, get life back to normal, and then pick up where we left off with the levelling up agenda, which is so important, that we were elected on, almost a year ago. We were having these discussions a year ago. It was an election campaign, and we were talking about levelling up across this country, and that matters enormously to me. And I know that it's something that really matters to people right across the country. So I can't wait to be able to be, to have the pandemic sorted, life as back to normal as possible, and really pushing forward on the levelling up agenda.
Okay, not missing much about him then. Let me just let you have the opportunity to once more offer your view on Donald Trump. He's tweeted, "We won't let a rigged election steal our country." That was the leader of a third world. We'd be going mad.
I'm concentrating on getting a vaccine over the line, delivering mass testing, getting life back to normal for people, making sure that people can have those loving interactions that make us human and make your life worth living, and that have been put on hold because of this pandemic. I've really got enough to deal with without having to respond to every single one of President Trump's tweets.
Okay, and if he's still in power, he certainly will be on the 1st of January. You haven't done a deal with the European Union. You're very happy for whoever, I don't know, whoever it might be, to do a deal with President Trump.
I'm terribly sorry, I didn't really understand the question, but if it was about the 1st of January...
Okay, let me say it again for you then. No, I completely understand. My question is, if we haven't done a deal with the European Union by the 31st of December, we need to start looking at doing deals with others around the world, like the United States of America. Would you be happy for our government to be doing a deal with a man who says an election has been rigged?
Oh, I see.
Kay Burley, I give her a lot of credit. She's really good. She is just great at what she does. I have to say, even though sometimes I criticize her for some of the things she says, I think she's damn good at what she does. She's really good. And there's just the throwaway lines, But it's serious. It's not about entertaining. She's actually doing a job, and it's just an honest response. It's like the kind of response a viewer would give to watching or listening, as you just did, to Matt Hancock there. And he totally wouldn't say anything about Donald Trump. And she's right. If this was a so-called third world leader, he would have been all over that. And yet, he's silent about Donald Trump. Give me a break. Where's the leadership? Where is it? Give me a break. Leadership? We need to have leadership again. And we need to have responsibility again. And we need to have decency again. So let's try to find that. And let's be our own leaders and chart a course of goodwill and care and good feeling. And then let's try to do the things that affirm positivity and humanity and joy and love, and not all these things that engender all of this, I'm not going to wear a mask, I don't care about you, I don't care about anything kind of posture that toxic masculinity is all about. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.